Hello and welcome back to the Checkpoint Reach podcast. On today's video, we're going to have a look at the Anthem VIP demo. I'm joined by Perks. How you doing, Perks?
What's up, man? How's it going?
I'm doing well, thanks. I nearly said I'm going well, but no, I'm doing well. Um,
Going already?
going already.
It's the quickest episode ever.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, Matty and Sud weren't able to play the demo this past weekend, and only me and you managed to get a chance on it. So we thought we'd throw together a quick review or first impressions video anyway, to give people our opinions, to let people hear our opinions on it. I mean, it didn't get off to the best of starts, did it? When you look back.
No, it had a lot of framework issues on day one, which everybody who even attempted to load up the game instantly knew about. They had the title screen crash, the infinite loading screens, the in-game crashes when you were close to the end of activities, rubber
Servers
banding,
being down.
frame rate issues, you name it, they had it.
Yeah, it was a bit of a mess. It was a bit of a mess, and as a result, it cut my playing time, drastically because I was unable to get on it as much as I wanted to over the weekend. You managed to get a decent amount of time played though, didn't you?
Probably around 6 or 7 hours overall,
Yeah, that's a lot better
which,
than
given
me.
the circumstances, is pretty respectable.
Yeah, that was a good effort, man. That was a good effort. Considering we didn't get to play it till Saturday, did we? Saturday evening would have been earliest, I think, in the UK. Well, for some people.
Yeah, it was a pretty much close to a day in hours by the time anyone got a stable sort of experience going. So
Yeah.
yeah, not the best of starts.
No, a disappointing start, but we'll get into it. And really, where I want to start with, I want to ask you what you thought was the best and worst thing about the Javelins. Now you've obviously got first-hand experience of playing the game.
Right, so I think the best thing for me was really just how unique they all feel. From starting off as the Ranger, which is the most generic of the four, and moving on to the Storm, which I definitely sort of mained during my 6 or 7 hours, and also having a look and seeing what the Colossus and Interceptor were all about too, although obviously not firsthand. They were all unique. They all had a sense of individuality. Their abilities weren't just sort of copy and pasted from each other. They really did feel individual,
Hmm.
and I like that a lot. It definitely gave the game a new feel when I jumped from the Ranger to the Storm, and yeah, thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get my hands on another Javelin, so I was only able to experience the Ranger. I enjoyed it too, it felt quite unique. It was the abilities that the Ranger had, I enjoyed as well. It made engaging in combat with enemies quite fun. However, the one thing that does stick out to me the most was the flying mechanics. That javelins obviously give you the chance or opportunity to fly in, and I thought it was so cool, so cool. I mean, a lot of people have compared it to Iron Man, which is a very good comparison. Um,
People have actually made Iron Man suits, so
well,
you
there
know
you go.
the joke's not lost on everybody. But what else could you want? I mean, you do get to be Iron Man, and combining the sort of the way that you traverse the world and the environments, and you're combining that with the combat and the abilities that you have, not just the weaponry. It sort of fits together perfectly, and I think it's what everyone hoped it would be.
Hmm.
It perhaps doesn't excel in every aspect, but I think in terms of a demo and where we're up to now, we can't be too disappointed with that.
No, I think it gives you it gives you the aspect of fun though as well, doesn't it? When you're controlling it is fun. It's enjoyable. Oh, I found it to be an enjoyable experience. Plus,
Definitely. Flying around with that suit, dodging left, right, bouncing higher than you could ever imagine, and sort of landing combination blows with abilities and weapons and ultimate attacks is always going to be fun.
it is. And plus, I like being coward man instead of Iron Man because when the going gets tough,
Scared man.
when the going gets tough, I'm flying out of there, and I love that I've got that ability to do that.
Yeah, you can get out of dodge before you're even in it, so
Exactly, gives me a chance
works
to
well.
regroup. Yeah, it does. I really enjoyed it. And speaking of like flying out of difficult positions or difficult situations, what do you make of the combat overall?
Again, I quite liked it. it's absolutely Mass Effect. Like you can see Andromeda in everything you do,
Yeah,
and this isn't a bad thing. The abilities and the way that they sort of work in tandem with each other and the weaponry, rather than just sort of aiming down sights with an assault rifle and shooting at a shield until it disappears, and then shooting at a health bar until it disappears. It works really well, the combat. I really like the combination of the offensive and the support or defensive abilities, and you can really throw together some good builds there. We'll touch on the loot a little bit later, but the more you unlock, the more fun the abilities become, and that all sort of pertains to a decent combat experience overall.
it
I
does.
don't think it's the greatest combat I've ever seen, but it works.
It felt fluid to me.
Yeah, absolutely. The game does in general.
Yeah, it does.
Well, when the frames aren't dropping. But
Yeah, ignoring that part. Ignoring that part.
yeah, but ignoring that part, I'm focusing like purely on the gameplay side of things. I think from a full release perspective, I think it's going to feel a lot more fluid more often, and that should be really good.
Yeah, I agree. You touched on Andromeda, and to me, I mean, I know it's an unpopular opinion with most people. Me and you liked Mass Effect Andromeda, and we both liked the combat in it. So to see them taking, elements from that, I'm happy about. I think they can improve it. Of course, I do. You can improve most things, but I think it's a good foundation to have. That, personal opinion there. Not sure what you make of that. Are you happy with that?
I like it. I think you can, it doesn't just stop at Andromeda. I mean, you could even look at Mass Effect 3, Mass Effect 2, and there's always been a combination of abilities
Hmm.
with gunplay, and it's always worked, and it's always made you feel really powerful as a player. And stepping into the sort of javelins and having those things at your disposal is definitely not a bad thing. So the comparisons are fine by me. I see them; they're really clear and obvious, but that's good,
Yeah,
and it works well in this game. So I'm more than happy for it to be like that.
yeah, definitely. Is there is there anything that springs to mind that you let's see that you don't really like about the javelins?
Not so much. I'm quite happy with the javelins. I think if there was even a minor criticism that I had to think of, it's that the Ranger probably seems a bit too generic.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that we haven't seen Colossus type and Interceptor type and Storm type characters in other games as well, because we have that this is nothing new. But when you go from playing as the Ranger to playing as the Storm, for example, like I did in my case, it's a very different experience. And I'm not saying you can't have good unlocks with the Ranger because you really can, and you can sort of put together some really interesting builds. But the Storm's just more fun. And when I watch videos of the Colossus and the Interceptor too, well, they look like more fun too. So it's not even a negative, really. It's just sort of pointing out the facts that I think the Ranger suffers the most of the four.
Hmm.
But it's a real small sample size that we've seen there in the demo. So who knows? Maybe the balancing will be way different come the full release.
Yeah, I guess that's something you want though sometimes in games, isn't it? The default one you're given, as cool as it is, it's like, oh, the Colossus now that's even better. Or the Storm's even better. It gives you a reason to actually want to go and experiment with different javelins, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you can sort of probably end up mastering each build and each character, each class if you like.
Hmm.
So yeah, then and it really does sort of appeal to each type of player, and the more sort of casual player may well enjoy the Ranger, and who knows, we might even see some more hardcore players main it as well because of how well rounded it is.
Yeah, I guess
Me,
time will
I'm
tell,
I'm
won't it? Until the full game comes out, where you can really tell which one's
yeah,
best for you.
absolutely. I just think when you look at the ultimate ability for the Storm with all those elemental effects going on left, right, and center, yeah, you're just left in the dark a bit with the Ranger, but hey, they're all good, and I'm not saying it's bad. I just prefer the other three.
Yeah, which is fair enough. But overall, I think it's a positive on the javelin side. Moving
Definitely.
on to something you touched about before, you mentioned loot. Um, Obviously, you're a big Destiny player as well, so you're used to these type of games. What is your opinion on the loot system in Anthem?
I was really happy with it in the demo. And I do say that with the caveat that I know it's not going to be demo-like in the full release. They've made that quite clear already. And the demo's generous to us in terms of loot because they, for as much as they restricted us from playing incidentally on day one, they do actually want to show off as much as they possibly can in a short space of time, right? So
Hmm.
their loot drops are frequent. You get a lot of different things for doing not really all that much. Even when you're doing the sort of last activity of the demo there, the stronghold, you get a lot of drops. You sort of routinely get sort of 10 or 11 drops. It's not going to be that plentiful in the full game, but to this point, I just like the fact that they've given us a lot to sort of work with and a taste for what's to come. Sure, we're going to have to work harder for it in the future, but they've shown us that it can be rewarding, right? So if it takes twice as long, but we know the reward's just as good, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's worthwhile.
It definitely felt that way.
Yeah.
And going from sort of the base build that you have at the beginning of the demo to what you actually end up with towards the end of where it closes, it's night and day. The difference is you have a lot of cool things via the loot, and you alluded to it. I'm used to these kind of games, and that's exactly what I want. I don't want to feel disappointed. I want that satisfaction, and that's what it provided in the demo.
Yeah, they showcased off their variety of loot pretty well, didn't they? Obviously, they won't be as generous as they were in the demo in the full game, but it gives you a nice taste of what you can find.
Yeah,
Um,
and the fact that it actually felt like it made a difference within the gameplay.
oh yeah, that's massive.
The loot drops genuinely affected how your javelin performed,
Hmm.
which is great. Otherwise, you end up with a bunch of drops that you just dismantle because they don't matter.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, props to them on that. They've done a good job so far.
Hmm. Definitely. However, moving on to one bit, I think we agree with was a bit underwhelming. Something we didn't like that much was Fort Tarsis. I, yeah, I don't know. It just didn't bring me in. I didn't have the urge to really have a look round because when I realised that I could only go a certain pace, and that pace was pretty slow,
Super slow.
super slow. Yeah, I just no, I just couldn't be bothered. I wanted to then get out of there and go on the missions and stuff like that, but a bit more fast paced. What are your thoughts then? I feel like we agree here, don't we?
Yeah, we definitely do. I mean, we have the benefit of having spoke about this when we were actually playing the game, but Fort Tarsis is just uninspiring to me. I'm not saying that there's not going to be people out there who really liked it, but I think you've sort of hit the nail on the head in terms of how slow it was and how sort of poor the console frame rates were whilst you were in there.
Oh yeah.
It kind of detracted from it, and for as much as I did have a bit of a leisurely walk around, it wasn't that much fun to explore. There's a lot of NPCs in there who aren't sort of main NPCs who don't sort of have a big part to play in the story, the background guys, if you will. They just do the same action over and over again. They look a bit bored, which kind of sums up Fort Tarsis. The story characters have a lot of detail to them, and they all look quite interesting, and the interactions with those guys are quite fun,
I'd agree.
and they are quite engaging. But it's just the stuff around it. The fort itself isn't very appealing. Like I said before, it just for a social space, it doesn't seem very social. You want to get out of there. You don't want to be there.
Maybe
So
it's something that will improve with the actual full release of the game when there's more stuff to do there. Maybe
I'd
just the
like to
demo
hope
didn't
so.
demonstrate it that well.
Yeah, I think it's probably restricted this way for demo purposes, but with it being a social place, you do want it to be social. You want to see other sort of freelancers in there. You want to see what everybody else is rocking. You want to see what gear people have. You want to see what people's javelins look like.
Hmm.
And sure, all that stuff will likely be in the full game, but if it's not at any point, then
That's a big
I'm not,
disappointment.
yeah, as a hub, as a place that you're supposed to be quite often, it doesn't tick the boxes for me. I wasn't a fan.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think it's something they need to implement. Maybe they already have plans for the Fort Tarsis in the official game, or the full release, sorry, when it comes out, that will put our concerns to bed. But at the moment, we can only go off what we've experienced, really, can't we? And it was just a bit underwhelming, I thought. Um, However, taking a more broader look of the whole demo overall, what were the main positives and negatives that stuck out for you?
As a whole, from the whole demo, I think the positives were that the javelins that we've talked about so far, I'm really glad that they feel unique, and it doesn't feel samey to go from one to the other, because that would get very old very quickly. And I'm really looking forward to having the sort of full arsenal unlocked come, mid-February. It's definitely appealing that the fact that the loot changes the game in quite a notable way, especially when it comes to the combat. And personally, I'm looking forward to seeing just how that sort of transitions from demo to full release. I'm, like I said before, I'm under no illusions. It's not going to be as generous. It's not going to be as easy to progress and enhance and upgrade abilities and so on. But as a taste of what's to come in sort of in that fashion along that line,
Hmm.
I'm quite happy with it so far, and I like the fact that it all comes together quite nicely with the javelins and the way that the combat feels, the way that you traverse the world, whether it's sort of free roaming or in combat, because the suits are really, really important in the way that you sort of learn how to master them and work it whilst you're in sort of engagements rather than just sort of moving around freely. Everything together seems like it could be a good thing.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. The the way the javelins are, the flying mechanics, they were fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Found it really fun, and I think that it was quite fluid with its combat. Uh, those would be the main positives for me. However, just touching on combat, for when I look at the game overall, what was disappointing? I think the AI was a little bit disappointing. I don't know what your thoughts on that, but sometimes they just stop moving altogether. Easy kill, I guess. And then it just took you out of it. You're in the moment, and all of a sudden the guy you're attacking just stops for no reason, just stops, and it's like, oh, maybe it's bugs that they can probably work out. We hope, but I think that sticks out to
Yeah,
me.
it's obviously a little bit concerning so close to the actual launch, and we talk about what have they actually been doing since they sort of put this to build together 6 weeks ago, and what they're going to be doing in the next 3 weeks. I would like to think that we're not going to see so much of the enemies getting confused and not really firing back nor running away. They're just kind of stopping in places. I don't think we'll see so much of that in the main release. I know people will point to Andromeda and say, hey, look, they've had random things happen before that shouldn't be there, so why not again? But we're probably just talking about sort of enemy sort of pathways here and lines of sight and stuff, so it shouldn't be too difficult to fix. Although I agree, within the demo, it does ruin the immersion when you're in a battle with something and it just stops or disappears.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit sort of disenchanting, if you like. And the AI itself wasn't too bad. I think the probably the worst thing about it for me was the fact that the enemy shields on the hardest difficulty was so horribly balanced it was untrue. But apart from that, I'm I'm not going to hold my breath and say that it's not going to be in the main release, but I just don't think it will be so prominent to begin with.
Yeah, they've got a chance to make tweaks and hopefully improve on stuff like that. Obviously, the worst part of the demo was it being unplayable. Was with it being unplayable for a
Yeah,
long part, which we touched on at the start of this show. So we definitely know that's the worst part. But the gameplay, yeah, I'd probably just for me, it's just the AI and probably Fort Tarsis not being well, it's just been a bit underwhelming. I felt, but that's it. I thought overall the demo was all right. It was quite enjoyable. It was cool, but it did make me want to see more. So I guess it's done its job.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think we've seen anything that's taken our breath away, and I don't think we've seen anything that warrants, sorry, canceling pre-orders or anything like that. It's somewhere in between. It looks like it's going to be good,
Yeah,
which may disappoint some people. But again, I guess we have to sort of live and die by our own expectations there. I think my biggest concern going forward is the fact that, like I alluded to before, this is a 6 week old build. We don't know what they've been doing within the last 6 weeks, and we don't know how they're going to spend the next 3 weeks before main release. They've already said that the balance and the economy are completely different or super different, I think was the term that they've used.
yeah,
So this can affect everything from, when they say balance, that's a broad term. So we're talking from javelins to combat to abilities to damage to everything that the
pretty.
game
Yeah,
has.
I was gonna say pretty much covers everything.
It's so broad. And the economy relates to not only the sort of in-game currency and the microtransactions, that relates to the loot as well, because it's such a big part of the economy within the game. So whilst I've enjoyed what we've seen so far, I'm very well aware that in sort of 3.5 weeks' time, I guess it is from now, things could be very different.
They could.
And that could be a good thing, that could be a bad thing. But I guess watch this space and we'll wait and see.
Yeah, and there's not that long to wait and see. So I'll stay optimistic for now. I'll
Well, one
stay
of us has to.
positive. Yeah,
Fair
one of us does have to.
there.
But anyway, thanks for joining me there, Perks, to discuss, our first impressions of the Anthem VIP demo. It was good to get your thoughts on it. And
Yeah, no problem. You too, and I'd be interested to hear other people's thoughts on it as well.
yeah, definitely. If you got any thoughts of your own, send it to us. Send us a tweet at ChetReachPod or on Facebook, anything you want, and let's have a debate about it. Anyway, we hope you've enjoyed this, and look out for our podcast, which will be coming out this week too. Thanks again for joining me, Perks, and we hope you have a good week. Bye, guys.
Pleasure as always. See you guys.